Blessings, BookTube. I'm here with another guidebook. This time, we're going home to Great Britain with insight guides. I was trying to show y'all some of the fun literary tidbits that can be found in these guidebooks, besides all the wonderful cultural knowledge one can gather up by reading them. I read old guidebooks that I find for 50 cents or free all over the world. Because I don't need the most up-to-date telephone numbers or whatever for trendy bars. And I find all this great literary stuff in there. And this one is chock full. Now, some of it, I'll start with the obvious. You probably, know most of it. But I'm going to end with some more interesting little tidbits that I found here and there scattered throughout the guide as I took notes sort of at random. So here we go. So the literary pilgrimages that they recommend are in Ayrshire for Robert Burns, Dorset, of course, for Thomas Hardy. You got Hampshire is Jane Austen, Kent for Charles Dickens, the Lake District, the Lake District poets. You got William Wordsworth. Nottingham is D.H. Lawrence. That one I had not known about. And of course, South Wales is Dylan Thomas. Warwickshire is William Shakespeare, and Yorkshire you have the Bronte sisters. So here's what we have in Yorkshire for the Bronte sisters: Anne, 1820 to 49, Charlotte, 1816 to 55, Emily, 1818 to 48. All were born in Thornton, West Yorkshire, although their family home was at the parsonage in Haworth, West Yorkshire, now a museum run by the Bronte Society. It has been restored to the way it was when the famous literary family lived here, 1820 to 61, and contains some of their furniture, manuscripts, and personal belongings. I love picturing them. I'm sure class-wise they spoke with a more received pronunciation, but I love picturing them speaking broad Yorkshire accent. Hello. Dropping their H's and these and all that good stuff. Warwickshire offers for William Shakespeare 1564 to 1616. Stratford upon Avon, of course, is synonymous with Britain's greatest playwright. The Shakespeare Birthplace Trust administers the following Tudor properties, which have Shakespeare associations. An inclusive admission ticket is available: Shakespeare's Birthplace, Henley Street, and Hathaway's Cottage; Shottery, where Shakespeare's wife grew up; Hall's Croft, Old Town; New Place, Nasher's House; Chapel Street, Mary Arden's house; and the Shakespeare Countryside Museum, as well as Wincot, the house where Shakespeare's mother grew up, now a museum of rural life. Okay, let's go over to Wales and Dylan Thomas, 1914 to 53. Thomas was born in the industrial town of Swansea in Wales, growing up in 5 Cymdonkinen Drive in the Uplands District. Follow the Dylan Thomas Uplands Trail and visit the boathouse where he lived and worked in Lahama. It's now a museum. Okay, Nottingham, D.H. Lawrence, 1885 to 1930. The son of a Nottinghamshire miner, Lawrence grew up in a tiny house in Victoria Street, Eastwood, which has been restored to give an insight into his working-class childhood, the Lawrence Birthplace Museum. Nearby at 28 Garden Road is Sons and Lovers Cottage, where the Lawrence family lived between 1887 and 1891, which can be seen as it was described in that novel. I love to picture lots of couples sneaking off into the woods to honor that great work. Okay, Lake District, Williams Wordsworth, 1770 to 1850, in Main Street, Cockermouth, Cumbria. You can visit the house where Wordsworth was born in 1770. It contains some of his personal belongings. Dove Cottage and Wordsworth Museum can be found in Townsend, Grasmere, Cumbria, where he lived with his sister, Dorothy, during the most creative years of his life. We've got, of course, Hampshire, Jane Austen, 1775 to 1817, the daughter of a Hampshire clergyman. She grew up in the village of Steventon. Between 1800 and 1817, she lived with her mother and sister in Chowton, Hampshire, while she wrote Mansfield Park, Emma, and Persuasion. Now a museum, the house contains personal letters, effects, letters, and manuscripts She also spent time in Bath and Lyme Regis, where she wrote much of Persuasion from Bay Cottage on the Braid. She is buried in Winchester Cathedral. Kent, Charles Dickens, 1812 to 70. Most of his life was spent in Kent and London. The house where he grew up is at number 11 Ordnance Terrace, Chattingham, Kent. Between 1837 and 1839, he lived with his wife and son at 48 Doughty Street, London, WC1, now owned by the Dickens Fellowship, and housing a wide range of personal belongings, manuscripts, and books. In 1856, Dickens moved to Gadshill Place near Rochester, now a girls' school, where he was to die. Dickens was fond of the seaside town of Broadstairs and went there to live in Bleak House to write part of David Copperfield. He also spent time in the Royal Albion Hotel there. Thomas Hardy in Dorset, 1840 to 1928. Hardy was born in Higher Brockhampton, where he wrote Far from the Maddening Crowd and Under the Greenwood Tree. He lived later in Dorchester, where he studied to be an architect, building his old house at Maxgate at the Wareham Road. In the late 19th century, the Dorset County Museum in Dorchester has a memorial collection devoted to Hardy. Hardy is the King's Arms, 30 High Street, one of the great pubs, the literary pubs we can visit in England. Dorchester on 18th Street, Coaching Inn as a setting in Mayor of Casterbury. He also wrote Return of the Native and Test of Rose. And lastly, Irish's Robin Burns. We got 1759 to 96, Scotland's literary hero. The original copy of his Old Lang Syne resides in the museum next door to the small white cottage where Burns was born in Alloway near Ayr. During the last years of his short life, he lived in a small house in the back street of Dumfries, now a museum. The Bachelors Club in Tarbleton, 17th century thatched cottage where Burns and a group of friends formed a literary club in 1780s, now run by the National Trust, and one can celebrate a Burns night there, of course, and declare the ode to the haggis or whatever it is. Right, so these are sort of the obvious ones that one thinks of, right? The ancient Kingdom of Wessex, Hardy Country, and of course the the Wuthering Heights and all those kinds of places. Not neglecting, of course. Here we go. East Anglia, where we have Yarmouth. Here, David Copperfield noticed on his first visit to Yarmouth, it looked rather spongy and soppy, and I could not help wondering if the world were really as round as my geography book, how could any of it be so flat? Right, well, we can't leave out London. London, thou great emporium of our isle, O thou too bounteous, thou too fruitful Nile, wrote John Dryden. And the guide says, not every visitor to London has come away enthusiastic. Henry James witnessed the squalor of London's slums in the 19th century, calling the city a horrible numerosity. Dostoevsky, sharing James' opinion, described London as vast as an ocean, a biblical symbol, some prophecy of the apocalypse. Thomas de Quincey's disaffection was more mundane. A duller spectacle the earth fars has not to show than a rainy Sunday in London. There is, however, the flip side of the coin. The London has delighted and enchanted visitors and residents for at least 5 centuries, and no one has captured in words the excitement of London as well as Samuel Johnson, the doctor who had a literary cure for just about everything. What a man is tired of London, he is tired of life, for there is in London all that life can afford. So you've got, of course, besides Bloomsbury, you've got the Inns of Court, right? One pictures She Who Must Be Obeyed. One pictures that great barrister with the battered hat walking the halls there. But on top of all these things, and of course, Marx plotting revolution in the London Museum, there are less known literary treasures. And that's what I want to go to in my very cramped little list. As you can see, I'll do my best to do my own read my own writing. Um, these are wonderful little places such as um, Dundee. So Dundee is the home of the celebrated poet William McGonagall, 1830 to 1902. Not heard of him, you say? Well, he is only the best bad poet of all time. Here is one example. O bonny Dundee, I will sing in thy praise a few but true simple lays regarding some of your beauties of the present day. And virtually speaking, there's none can them gainsay. There's no other town I know of with which you can compare for spinning mills and lassies fair, and for stately buildings there's none can excel the beautiful Albert Institute or the Queen's Hotel. For it is most handsome to be seen where accommodation can be had for Duke, Lord, or Queen. All right. What else can we seek out? Um, well, of course, there is the Small Pilgrim's Cottage from Canterbury's uh, Tales and the Canterbury Cathedral. One has Beatrix Potter's house, and she's also honored in my own hometown in Warrington. That's in the Lake District. You've got Thomas Paine of American fame. He was burned at the stake um, in Essex, East Sussex, excuse me, East Sussex. Oh, no, excuse me. Also in East Sussex, where Thomas Paine wrote about freedom, ironically, 10 were burned at the stake for religious crimes. All right. There where the Magna Carta, within view of Cooper's Hill, where the great Magna Carta, there's a great literary legacy, was writ. We also have Pope, Eternal Pope, um, saying this. On Cooper's Hill, eternal reeds shall grow, while last the mountains, or while Thames shall flow. Lovely. I love these juxtapositions, right? When Magna Carta, Pope, um, the great religious freedomist Paine there at the witch burning. Gibbon, for example, of Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. Um, he was a guard of French prisoners of W in the same castle, Sissinger's castle, that was owned by the Sackville Wests. So this sort of vile bodies, um, Richie Rich kind of thing. There were Gibbon's once guarded French POWs. You've got your Poets' Corner in Westminster Abbey. You've got all these different places where people are buried. That's pretty common knowledge. But did you know that you can also visit the pathology lab down in the morgues of St. Bart's Hospital? That's where Sherlock Holmes first met Dr. Watson, his roomie. Kent has apples, cherries, hops, and women, says Mr. Jingle of Dickens. Lyme Regis has the seawall, where you can find the very steps where what's her name fell down in Persuasion. And apparently Tennyson really wanted to see those very steps. He was quite taken with that. And they're called, by the way, Granny's Teeth, the steps on the seawall. Also from French Lieutenant's Woman. Some of these places are also where things were filmed, which is not always the exact same place where things happened. So sometimes it'll be kind of like in, where is it? Salzburg. I went to the real Van Trapp house, and then I went to the Van Trapp house where they filmed Sound of Music. So you get that sort of thing in England as well. Right. Fleet Street. Oh, famous Fleet Street back in London. So you won pictures Amis, right? Scoop, Martin Amis. But did you know that this is also where Dr. Johnson, Old Church Natchez. I'm not quite sure. Maybe that's where he said that women could curiously walk on hind feet or something horrible like that. Okay. You've got the Mob Quad memorabilia of Max Beerbohm, the humorist in Oxford, where you can visit the very pool where they dunked in Bridesheads Revisited, was Bridesheads Revisited. Oh, Wind in the Williams Country, Kenneth Graham. That you can find in Dorchester also. Hampstead, D.H. Lawrence, where I talked about. Keats, Dickens, Bath. Oh, yes, good old Bath. What have we got going in Bath? So, of course, all the, the famous costume drama stuff. But there's also King Lear's dad is actually sort of founded the place when he bathed his pigs there to cure their scrofula. So, inauspicious, an odd beginning for the fame of the cure at baths. West Country, you've got Jack the Giant Killer country there, so sort of folklore. Duma. Okay, Duma is associated with the Barnyard uh, Castle model. Oh, which was made the model school, which Nicholas is. Excuse me, not Duma. Durhas is the name of the Barnyard Castle where the model school existed. That was the model for Nicholas Nickleby School. You've got Bag's End, TS, and Cast Off at the same place where the Robinson Crusoe, the original model, cast off. That's at Cocker in Old Cocker, I think, maybe. You've got Song Great Abbey. Oh, which is near Whitby, where Dracula came ashore. Okay, Shropshire Lad. It's near the Marcher, where the Marcher Lords are, near the Wales border. Charles Kingsley again was Westward Ho, is also over there in not in Wales. Sorry, that's down, isn't it? Dorset, Cornwall, I believe, is where that is. Tintagel, of course, the Arthurian stuff. That's pretty well known. Hughes Castle. So lots of castles, lots of pubs. Is from the Milkwood. Okay, so now we're back in Wales. From Dylan Thomas, of course. Wigan Pier, right? Orwell's Wigan Pier. Bradford in York is where Alan Bennett and J.B. Priestley's Bruddersford from Good Companions can be found, as well as Darrowby in Yorkshire, and All Creatures Great and Small. If you've never seen the great BBC adaptation of that, it's where the third Doctor Who, the one with the celery sprig, got his start. Virginia Woolf, Bloomsbury, right? We know all about that. Lake District. Oh, and the spot where she walked into the river as well. That's got I believe, a monument or something there. Okay, the Lake District Museum. You also have there among the Lake District poets, and then I mentioned Beatrix Potter's nearby in Lakeshire. But you've also got Swallows and Amazon, Arthur Ransom country. Okay, and Beatrix's house is in Surrey, not Surrey, sorry. Okay, Cambridge, Christ College, the Milton's Tree, the hymn of creativity. In the Peak District, you've got in most charming situation, one of the, sorry, it's a Walpole quote. I'm trying to put it together here. One of the foulest towns in England in the most charming situation. Oh, interesting. Okay. Burns' address to the haggis I mentioned earlier. Poets Row is in West Street, and you can visit Marlowe, Mary, and Shelley. Defoe counted 20,000 sheep. Defoe counted 20,000 sheep at Stonewald. He must have had one of those literary types that had a government commission. Mumbles. In the Mumbles, we have, of course, There's Buried in Tide. The great Balder. Now, who is Balder? Balder's the one who ruined Shakespeare, the one who Balderized everything. So cut out all the saucy bits. So he's honored there. What else have we got? Stratford Arms and Gower's Gate statue. The Greys, Thomas Gray's Ode upon the District Prospect of the Economics College, 1771. Sorry, I'm not making that one out for you. Okay, in the Cotswolds, we've got, the slate, is it? Churches and all that. You've got the tallest pinnacle there. No, sorry, that's in Salisbury. That's in Wessex. The tallest spire in the Salisbury Cathedral, what he called Malchester Cathedral, right? Yeah, New Sarum. And he wrote of it that they'd had as many windows, and there were days in the year, as many pillars as years, as hours, and as many gates as moons, wrote Hardy. So back to the Cotswolds, here it's Shelley's churchyard, right? So we have the pinnacles point from one shrine. The pinnacles of the churchyard, Lochlade Churchyard. The Lochlade Churchyard is in Cotswold, of which Shelley wrote, whose pinnacles point from one shrine like pyramids of fire. All right, folks, there's plenty more, but I can't make out my own handwriting. So just a little taste of the kind of fun literary stuff that you can find in any country. Of course, Britain's a little more studied than many. And it's also a very small country with a lot of history packed in, so it's a rather more dense in some ways culturally. But every country has its own fascinating literary stuff that you can sometimes find in their little guidebooks. So check them out. I think they're fun.